So you've now completed the course. I wanted to talk about a few things before you go though. The first is I wanted to congratulate you on actually having completed the course, on having watched the videos and worked through the assignments and all that. And I hope that you have some pride in your new capabilities. And the reason I say that is that it's not as common as what you might think. I don't know the percentage, but just based on my experience, I would hazard a guess to say probably 80 to 90% of the people walking around thinking of themselves as photographers don't know the things that you just learned in this course and are not capable of doing the things that you're now capable of doing. So you've come a long way, and this is unusual. So again, congratulations, and I hope that you have a little bit of pride in what you just learned and you're able to go out and use this stuff. And I think you will be able to use this stuff basically for the rest of your life to get great pictures. So congratulations again. With that said, the next question is, what do you do next? Should you continue to work on exposure stuff? Should you work on something else? Should you try to learn something else? Should you worry about Photoshop or post-processing? What should you do? And I want to answer that in two ways. First is in the immediate future for those of you that don't feel entirely comfortable with the exposure controls. And if you don't, that's just fine. What I'd recommend that you do is continue to practice for a little while. And when I say practice, I don't mean anything very involved. I just mean a few minutes a day, taking a few shots and manipulating the exposure controls. And doing this over, different days will reinforce this in your mind and make it clear. And I think it'll become a little bit habitual for you and make a lot more sense. In that regard, though, I want to make sure you have realistic expectations, because some people act like, that you're supposed to sort of not have to think about it at all. And what I want to tell you is that you will always have to think about it. I have to think about it. Everybody I know that's a serious or professional photographer has to think about it a little bit. It's not sort of the only thing you think about. That, the more you do it, the more comfortable you get and the more you can think about other stuff. But you will always have to think about it. So don't try to get this to a point where you just never have to think about it at all, because that's not realistic. But do practice it and just get comfortable with it. Once you've done that, then move on to try to learn something else to improve your photography. And that was the second thing I wanted to talk about, which is, what is that? Which direction should you go? And what I recommend is that you next think a lot about composition and start trying to learn more about that. And in fact, when I created my original course for Digital Photography School that sort of worked through all the photography, that was sort of the order that we used. We did exposure stuff like you just learned, and then we went into composition. And that makes sense in my mind, because first you got to learn how to use the camera, which you just did. Now learn how to use it in more of a artistic sense in order to create pictures, sort of take this 3D scene in front of you and turn it into a nice, pleasing 2D picture. And it's not always intuitive. It takes some effort, and there's a lot of techniques that you can learn that will make your pictures a lot better. I do think you're going to find that there's not as much out there on composition as there is other stuff in photography, like exposure and like processing and stuff like that. The reason I think is that composition can be difficult to teach. The concepts can be a little vague and mushy and just hard to communicate. So I don't think you're going to find as much out there as you might on other subjects. That said, I'm now working on a new composition course as I record this. And I think that will help a lot, because what I'm going to do is a lot of the same stuff that we did here, where I try to make it very simple, but very concrete and very useful for your photography, and then reinforce it with the assignments like we did in this course. So if you found this course useful, I think you'll find the composition course even more useful, because it's going to take these vague and mushy concepts and make them very concrete and help you apply them in your photography, and it'll really advance things for you, I think. So in any event, I hope you have enjoyed this course, and I hope to see you in the next one as well. Take care.